Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want your connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
This is a special bonus episode of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast.
In 1984, amid fears of nuclear war and a complex relationship with consumerism, teen-focused films thrived. This often forgotten 80s flick stands out as a darker entry blending themes like consumerism, alien threats, mutation, and sinister scientists. The film follows 2 sisters who survive a comet-induced apocalypse that turns most people to dust and others into zombies. After realizing they might be among the few survivors, they venture into the city, meet a fellow survivor, and discover that survival in a post-apocalyptic world is far from safe. So grab your handy MAC-10 submachine gun, hop on the motorcycle, and remember that we don't cross against the light. As the lead actress of the film, Catherine Mary Stewart joins Chris Adams and I to discuss Night of the Comet from 1984 on this special bonus episode of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast.
Did you ever wonder what it would be like to be one of the last people on Earth?
We're talking ghost town!
Who would you see?
There's nobody. There's nobody.
What would you do?
Hey, I'm sorry if the end of the world makes me a little nervous.
Where would you go?
The stars are up!
Well, get ready to find out, because the comet is coming into your orbit.
The legal drinking age is now 10, but you will need ID. Let's be real.
It's the Night of the Comet.
What do you give me if I come back?
Texas?
Night of the Comet.
I'll be taking requests from all you teenage comet zombies.
The night the teenagers ruled the world.
Yeah!
Night of the Comet.
I'm Tim Williams, the mastermind behind the mic at the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. Joining me on each epic episode is a guest co-host who's as crazy about 80s flicks as they are about wearing parachute pants and solving Rubik's Cubes. We're diving into nostalgic treasures we saw at the local theater, rented on VHS tapes, or discovered on cable TV. From blockbusters that make you say,
I feel the need for speed,
to hidden gems that'll have you screaming,
They're here!
It's a blast to relive these old memories and share our thoughts on what made these movies so special. We reminisce about our first-time watch experiences, share our favorite scenes, and even discover fascinating behind-the-scenes tales about the cast and crew along the way. Haven't hit that subscribe button yet? What are you waiting for?
Come on, do it!
On Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. And hey, while you're at it, be a pal and drop us a written review along with a 5-star rating to tell us what you think about us.
The sportos and motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
Take a day off and come hang out with us on social media. Just search 80s Flick Flashback on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And don't forget to bookmark 80sflickflashback.com for more gnarly content.
Get out of town. I didn't know you did anything creative.
Want to crank it all the way up to 11? Become a supporter on buymeacoffee.com for only $5 a month.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Click the link in our episode show notes, and while you're there, soak up the extra trivia and fun stuff that didn't make it into today's show. Thanks again for tuning in. Now, let's get right into today's episode.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this very special bonus episode of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. A few weeks ago, Chris Adams from Retro Life For You podcast reached out to let me know that he would be having 80s actress and frequent guest of his show, Catherine Mary Stewart, on his podcast to discuss her 1984 sci-fi horror flick, Night of the Comet. So Chris invited me to join on his episode, and Catherine was so gracious and lovely during the recording. So this episode is actually an abbreviated version of the Retro Life For You podcast episode. You can listen to the full episode over on his podcast, so go check it out as well. All right, without further delay, here's Chris Adams, Catherine Mary Stewart, and I discussing Night of the Comet. Enjoy, everybody.
This time we're doing Night of the Comet. This is part of our scary month of October for horror movies, and Night of the Comet is a great classic movie out there that a lot of people love to this day. I watched it just again last night. I wanted to just make sure I refresh my memory, and it does not get old watching. It's got this thing about it to where it's supposed to be like a horror movie, but it's also like it feels part sci-fi in a way, although there's no aliens or anything. But I mean, it just feels part sci-fi, part horror. There's some humor to it.
I feel like it crosses a lot of genres, don't you? I mean, it's very tongue-in-cheek in a way. It's very sort of 80s Valley Girl kind of a thing, but it's got the horror with the zombies. But it's interesting because I was talking to somebody about zombie movies, and when you think of it, there are only like 2 or 3 real zombies in the movie. The first one that I fight in the alley, and
Right.
Then the little kid that's chasing Hector around. I mean, as opposed to these zombie movies where there's millions of them just falling over each other. And,
Right.
but it had that element, and then it had some sci-fi because it's a comet, but it had the humor as well. I mean, I love that. I think it's kind of unique that way.
Yeah, I think the back half feels more sci-fi because of the government agency that's trying to capture them and test them and all that kind of stuff. So that to me gave it more that sci-fi kind of element with the the wicked government trying to do experiments on humans, and zombies or whatever.
But you know what though? You know what? If you'd gotten Uzis instead of MAC-10s, the government people might not have got you.
Hello, Dad would have got us Uzis.
Exactly. Right. I don't know what he's thinking.
Okay, I'll tell you the story.
We love stories. Bring them on.
Excellent. So Tom Eberhardt, the director-writer, he wanted Uzis originally, and the producers were like, yeah, no, those are too expensive. We're just going to do these MAC-10 things. And so flashback to the beginning of the movie, you see a picture of Sam and Reg and our dad, the Green Beret. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Dad is Tom Eberhardt.
Really?
Dressed as a Green Beret.
That's hilarious. I was going to ask you about y'all's pictures. Were those like younger now? Because you look younger in those pictures versus what you did in the movie. To me,
oh really?
Were those supposed to be like current pictures, or was it maybe a couple of years?
So. No, I think they were supposed to be current. I mean, Kelly and I. That's another story. I'll get to that story too. But let me finish this one because it's pretty funny. So the MAC-10s kept jamming, and that wasn't intentional. And finally, when we were doing that scene, shooting the car, and it was jamming over and over again, Tom said to Kelly, just say, Daddy would have got us Uzis. It was kind of like, because he was Daddy in the picture, and it was kind of a jab at the producers. And so that wasn't in the script originally, but Tom gave Kelly that line, and I said, well, the car didn't notice the difference, or whatever I said. But that whole scenario was pretty much ad-libbed. But yeah. And then I forget what we were talking about. The other thing you were mentioning.
The pictures.
Oh, the pictures. I couldn't tell if maybe you were a couple years younger in the picture. Like it was supposed to be older pictures, or was it more of a current thing that was? And you were just, maybe done it differently or something.
Well, we actually took those pictures after Kelly and I hadn't even met each other. She auditioned with somebody else, and I auditioned with somebody else. And when we found out. We found out that we got the roles, and they said, come down to the studio. We just want to do some photos for props on the thing. So it was before we started shooting, but just after we realized we got the job. I think my hair's a little longer. I must have got a haircut or something like that. When I look at it, it looks like my hair is longer. But no, I mean, I don't think it was intentionally, to make us look younger.
It could just been me.
Yeah.
Honestly, it could have just been me when I watched it, because it's just one of those scenes where you glimpse at it and you go to the next scene, and it's not like I rewound back and looked again to say, wait a second, those older pictures, because no, I wouldn't have done that.
I mean, all of these movies have been sort of referenced, whoever's involved with them, or involved with, directing or whatever, who have been a fan of these movies from the 80s, they'll try to plug something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's cool about the people that are coming up now. I mean, of course, they're maybe not the 80s kids like we were, but they were still influenced by that, whether their parents showed it to them or they discovered it themselves. And you see all those nods to the 80s that we catch because we lived it. And the younger generation kind of goes over their head, but you can see, they're definitely influenced by this. And you can see that, like a movie like Night of the Comet, which, a lot of people have kind of forgotten, but still a cult favorite, that to be in The Walking Dead is a huge, huge homage, and just a good honor for you guys to say, like, hey, we made this movie and maybe it didn't do as great as we thought it was going to, but it still has, it's still
impact,
acknowledged,
right?
impact now.
Yeah.
So, like, would The Walking Dead be successful without Night of the Comet?
Of course not.
Right.
Like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Buffy was inspired by Sam's character.
Mm-hmm.
I think they say that there's a little bit of both of us in there, but she was a cheerleader and all that stuff. So physically, I think it more her, but maybe not as sort of goofy or whatever.
Right.
Maybe there's a little more toughness, which I think is my character more. Mm-hmm. At any rate, that's one of the amazing things about these little movies that you did so long ago, is that they do still have some sort of an impact, and the fans are so dedicated and diehard. It's really kind of cool trying to get their kids who are used to, all the Marvel movies and all the special effects, trying to get them to appreciate. I mean, that's a tough task. But I mean, sometimes they get to them. The difference is, I think, is that the characters, if you sort of, kind of ignore all this, that the special effects aren't as sophisticated and all that other stuff, but you actually watch it for the story arc and the characters that are relatable on some level. They're different that way, and I think they do have sort of a more longer lasting impact kind of a thing, because the kids that watch them sort of they feel like they could possibly be those characters.
Yeah, exactly. So I got a question. So what drew you to Night of the Comet? Was it something that you pursued, or did they reach out to you, or you just how did it come across, your path?
Yeah. Well, I had just done The Last Starfighter. So that kind of, put me sort of on the map in Hollywood. So I think they brought me in thinking I was right, although the two characters are very different. But, it was, you sort of skipped a lot of steps when you are you sort of made somewhat of a mark as an actor. So for instance, like the casting person meeting me for the first time or something like that. I think my the audition, I did audition for it. Kelly actually has a great story about how she read the script and all this. I don't remember exactly. I think I liked the character of Regina because it was sort of a departure for me. I always kind of played the girl next door. That was what that they tended to cast me as. And so this was kind of a departure. So I like that element of it, but like I said, I skipped the first maybe few steps of auditioning, and I think maybe I had one or two auditions. The second one was paired with somebody, and then they offered it to me. So that was kind of great, I mean, but like I said, I mean, the character really appealed to me. It was kind of like more me, really. I sort of have the physicality of the girl next door, but mentally, not so much. So this was super fun for me to do.
Yeah.
I think what it was, Tim, is her previous boyfriend was a gamer, and they needed somebody who could come into this movie and be a gamer herself. And
that's right. I learned everything from Alex.
so they brought Mags in to play some Tempest and changed her name and.
Yeah. That was fun. And, it's so funny how these games, and at the time when you're working and you're sort of doing one thing after another, that there happens to be these games in both the movies, and it's so funny because you don't really think about these things until you look back years later and go, oh yeah, that's right, because they were such different movies also.
But video games that was such a huge thing then, so that's it was common.
Totally.
How many arcades do you see in 80s movies? Like, that was the place to hang out and the things that kids were into. So I mean, myself included. But yeah, I was gonna say, definitely see a departure for the role, because you definitely have an edge in this movie that you don't really see in the other roles. I mean, the other roles are great. You do great, but this one, I think, it stands out in your filmography as one where it's like, you got a little bit of attitude, you're more rebellious, you've got a little bit of a, tough streak, but, you also have that, the of course, the 80s montage where you're all trying on the different outfits, and, kind of has that, you're just like, she's still a girl.
Unapologetically a teenage girl, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I think the line in there is like, where would two teenage girls go? They're going to the mall, like that's.
Yeah. The stores are open.
Yeah. Get whatever you want.
Don't need that credit card.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And now these messages.
Hey there, fellow 80s movie aficionados. Are you ready to embark on a nostalgia-filled journey to the greatest era of cinema? Then look no further than the Retro Life for You 80s Movie Podcast. Join us every week as we rewind the VHS tapes, dust off those Betamax classics, and dive headfirst into the neon-soaked, totally tubular world of the 1980s movies. From the Brat Pack to action heroes, we've got it all covered. Breakfast Club, Ghostbusters, E.T. and Indiana Jones, and more. It's like a trip in Doc Brown's time machine, but without the DeLorean. So whether you're a die-hard 80s film buff or just curious about the cinematic gems of the past, Retro Life for You is your ticket to the ultimate movie time warp. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Retro Life for You, and we can be found anywhere you listen to your podcast, as well as on our website, www.retrolife4u.com.
Are you a fan of movies and TV shows inspired by comics? Ready for a podcast that dives deep into the thrilling world of adaptations? Well, look no further. Welcome to Moving Panels, the podcast where we discuss movies and TV shows based on, inspired by, and adapted from the world of comic books. This is your go-to podcast for all things comics on screen. I'm your host, Laramie Wells, and every Monday we explore the dynamic universe where ink meets action. We break down the classics, reveal hidden gems, and uncover the creative process behind your favorite adaptations. Subscribe to Moving Panels now on your favorite podcast platform and join us on this epic journey through the pages of comics and onto the big screen. Remember, new episodes drop every Monday. Don't miss out. Moving Panels, where every panel has a story and every adaptation is a blockbuster. Subscribe today, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Give you mentioned Christmas time. I told Tim earlier, I said, next time I have an argument with somebody about Die Hard, I'm gonna throw Night of the Comet in with it too. Night of the Comet was a Christmas movie. The guy had at one point, dude had a Christmas suit on.
He came as Santa Claus. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a Christmas suit. I'm sorry, I meant Santa Claus suit.
Well, that covers a lot of ground. Christmas suit, but I mean,
I guess it does.
Specifically, it was into. But yeah, and when they sort of go through the town, city or whatever, it's California, but you see a lot of Christmas decorations and things like that.
Yeah, there's a Christmas song that plays in the beginning too, I think.
Yeah. And again, we shot it around that time anyway. But in LA, there's no. It doesn't. It's so weird being in LA for Christmas because it's not cold, obviously, and it's just I feel sorry for the Santa Clauses because they must be really hot.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I did a trip to Hawaii the end of November. We were flying back to the States, and in the airport they were playing Christmas music, and you're like, it's 85 degrees, everybody's in shorts and tank tops, and it's like, this just doesn't feel right. Or you're driving on the street, you see inflatable snowmen and palm trees. It's like, this is Christmas in Hawaii seems a little odd to me, but they make it work.
Why not, right?
Where are you, Tim? Where are you right now?
I'm outside of Atlanta, so I'm southeast.
Well, you're in the South. I mean, it doesn't snow a lot, does it?
No.
We get more ice here than snow.
Yeah. Where are you, Chris? You're not Atlanta too, are you?
No, I'm just outside of Nashville.
Okay. All right. Nice.
Yeah.
God, I love that part of the country. It's beautiful.
What all do you remember about the crew that you worked with? I mean, not the crew of the movie, but the other actors you worked with. What all do you remember about them? I know you talk about Kelly a lot. Y'all been to a lot of the cons together and stuff. But what about
Kelly
like
and
Robert?
I are still really good friends. Robert Beltran, he was so sweet. I think he hesitated with this movie, from what I understand. I don't know, but I've heard that Kelly is the one who knows all this junk. It's so funny. I just kind of like show up, I do my thing, and I leave. But she was like, she was really close with the producers, and she was watching the dailies and all that stuff. But she had a little inside track, I think. But apparently he was like, but then Mary Warnoff did it, and they had worked together a few times.
Yeah.
So I think that was part of the reason he decided to be on the show. I wouldn't be surprised if he was like paid the most as well, because also he was much more established than we were. He was really, really sweet and very, I always say his voice was like butter. He was very sexy, and I was the sister that got to like flirt with him a little bit. So that was super fun. He was great. A lovely guy. Really fun.
I know him and Sharon Farrell before this movie started. Well, they didn't star exactly. They were co-stars, or they were actors in the Lone Wolf McQuade movie that Chuck Norris had done. That's my favorite Chuck Norris movie. But just before this was filmed, they were in that together.
Okay.
Do you recall anybody who you competed with for the role of Reggie?
I don't know who else they saw. I don't know who Kelly read with. But I know that she was more physically similar, like she was blonde and all that other stuff. But I don't know who it was at all.
I know Heather Langenkamp read for the role of Samantha, I think. I read that.
Right. She and I read together because she had sort of darker hair and we were more physically similar. So I read with Heather, and Kelly read with someone else. And they ended up putting us together. We don't look exactly alike, but I think it worked out okay.
Y'all had great chemistry together, which I think really, helped a lot. So that of course you're playing sister, so there's going to be that little friction, but it worked. They don't get along all the time, but you can tell that you loved each other, and there was camaraderie there. So it definitely came across.
That whole the stores are open thing, that was my little maternal, I'm the older sister. I'm trying to make her feel better about, what she was talking about the one boy that she had a crush on. I guess she's not going to be able to see him anymore, all this other stuff. So we had a good relationship, and we still do. We're still really good friends. I just saw her a couple of weeks ago.
Very cool.
We got a con together, or?
No, I was in LA. There were 2 screenings of The Last Starfighter at this sort of iconic little independent theater called Lemley's in LA. And Lance Guest is a good friend with one of the Lemleys, and they screened The Last Starfighter. So there were 2 screenings of that. So I was there for about a week. Stayed at Lance's house, which is great. I'm heading there again. There's another.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's where you were when we tried to do that at the show. I think you were there for that for the screening.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I blame Lance's house for our problems.
He might be the last Starfighter, but his internet was terrible. Just tell him I said so. That's okay.
Terrible. Come on, join us in the 21st century, Bob.
Wow. Rick would not be happy with this.
Another character that I've actually reconnected with is Ivan Roth, who played Willie the Box Boy. You know, the guy who looks into, I guess he could be officially a zombie too when he comes with his buddies and shoots us up in the mall and stuff like that. He's such a great guy. He's so funny. He's been to one convention with us, but you know, he's just not as big a role, but he's such a character and he's so much fun to talk to. Like, he does a great interview kind of a thing about how he came up with the voice and all this other stuff, just the whole process. Really good guy, lives in Los Angeles, and I try to see him when I'm there too. So there were so many great actors, and you know, Michael Bowen, for instance. I mean, he's done a ton of stuff. Jeffrey Lewis.
Just he's one of my favorites.
Love him. Worked with him a couple of times in different things. I just love him. I just love looking at him. He has those eyes, those blue eyes. That was one of my favorite scenes, aside from the beating the zombie and the beating up the zombie in the lane. Yeah, alley. That scene with him just alone in that room. God, it was so much fun to do.
See, we need to add some extra credits in the movie with your name on it. We need to put Stunt Woman on there too. So it's like,
hello.
I mean, all except for driving a motorcycle down the road. I believe you did most of your stunts at that point, right?
Oh yeah, we did everything. We had to. So yeah, I before I was an actor, I was a dancer. So I was pretty physically fit and flexible and all that other stuff. So, and the guy who played the zombie who I had the fight with, he was a stunt guy. So I trusted him. I knew he wasn't going to hurt me. I was fine. Yeah. So I just put everything into that, and it was super fun. And, you know, they trained us on the MAC-10s. We had to learn how to shoot them properly, and that was interesting, going to the shooting range and learning the things you do and you don't do, because it doesn't happen often, but every decade or so, somebody gets either killed or seriously injured by a weapon on a set.
Yeah.
And they're deadly weapons. And even though they're supposed to only have blanks, you can't be more careful. You just can't.
Even with the blanks, even with blanks in the gun, I think the guy's name was John Eric Hexum from television years ago. He kind of proved that point, unfortunately, that you can't really play around with a gun with blanks in it, because they're definitely,
because there could be a little bit of lead. I guess there was just a little bit of lead left in there, and
there was something.
Whatever. Yeah. But there's even, you know, an explosion. I mean, there has to be explosions. Right. So if your from what I remember that very clearly, that event, and I think he was playing around and he put it up to his head.
He was playing a prank on his castmates, and they put it up near his temple, and not thinking, I guess, or not knowing, or understanding maybe, or something. I don't know. But.
Yeah, you just cannot be careful. And of course, the whole Alec Baldwin thing.
Still
such an incredible tragedy. Such an incredible tragedy. Yeah.
When you guys made this movie, I was reading that Mary, was it Warnoff? Warnoff. She said that she doubted the film would have any longevity to it. It felt more like a fad movie than a cult classic. I mean, it's hard to tell at the time when you do something where something's going to go. But this was like a couple of years after the fact of filming, and I don't really know where it was at that point in time. And in your opinion, maybe thinking back, even around that time of 86, 87. Do you think that, did you ever think that movie may carry on forward and be something like that, like a cult classic in a sense? Or was it just, one and done, it's done with, it's gone, move forward?
No, I not even a little bit. I mean, when it opened up in theaters, it left very, very quickly. What saved it was VHS.
Mm-hmm.
It became it really found its footing with VHS, and from stories that I hear, these conventions are so much fun because you hear the people, the audience's experiences, and they're all so varied and so interesting. But most of them, especially with the people that are a little bit older, they would watch this movie over and over again in the VHS machine, and sometimes it would be like The Babysitter after school or something like that. And it was a kind of movie that parents were okay with their kids seeing. It really. I feel like this is the same with The Last Starfighter. It's sort of that in between stage between like Walt Disney movies and then adult movies. It's right sort of in that cuff.
Oh yeah. That was
kids. Yeah,
that was the cusp of PG-13 where it was starting to stretch that boundaries between what's a quote unquote family film and what's a little bit more adult, where you're trying to appeal to both at the same time and finding that balance. And so, you're thinking about, like, this is one, Night of the Comet is not one that I saw as a kid. So I'll be the first to say this was new to me a couple of years ago. A good friend of mine, podcaster, Jerry D, he does a Christmas podcast. And so, of course, this is set at Christmas. So this is one that he told me about. I did a series on TikTok when I first started called Forgotten 80s Flicks, where I would just start talking about movies that I remember seeing as a kid that aren't on like the big top 10 list of 80s movies. And so when I started putting on TikTok, people would flood me with all these, hey, have you seen this? Have you seen this? And I found out like this is how I found out about Night of the Comet. But Last Starfighter is one that, of course, I loved as a kid. And kind of my fun story, if you don't mind me sharing, is I remember seeing it on VHS. And then I think when I was in 6th grade, it was the end of the year. And like if you were on the AB honor club, honor roll, whatever, we had like a special, quote unquote, special treat in the cafeteria. So I'm going and thinking it's going to be a pizza party. No big deal. We'll have a little bit of fun. We walk in, they've got all the chairs like and popcorn machines, and they had a screen. They had an actual reel-to-reel copy of The Last Starfighter, and we got to watch it in the cafeteria that afternoon. And I was so excited because of all my friends, I was the only one that had seen it before. It's like, you guys are going to love this movie. It's so awesome. And so that's one of my fond memories as a kid of like watching The Last Starfighter at school on like a big screen in the school. Was like, it blew my mind. Like I have a theater in my school. It was so cool. And just watching that movie. And it's one of my favorites. I love it so much. So I'm glad I got to share that story with you.
I love that story. I love your school.
Yeah.
I don't know who was responsible for that, but they have really good taste.
Yes. They picked the right movie.
That's super awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't say we ever got Last Starfighter, but they did it for us too, the cafeteria during test times at the end of the year, for people who had to stay at school and couldn't leave early. You had movies to watch, right? So unfortunately, Last Starfighter was on with them, but I'd probably seen Last Starfighter at that point probably 100 times anyway. So,
yeah, it's so interesting, how sometimes movies that aren't this huge mega success in a theater are just very, very successful behind the scenes, and you don't hear about it. And everybody's like, "Can we please have a sequel? And we need a sequel to The Last Starfighter."
Yeah.
I mean. Even with Night of the Comet, at one point Kelly was trying to get the rights to Night of the Comet and to make a sequel. There's been talk back and forth about stuff. There was even talk about making a series and all this other stuff. I'm still in touch with Tom Everhart. He owns the property again. But so there's been different ideas about what to do with it next. But The Last Starfighter is the classic one, where it ends, where of course there should be a sequel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I remember telling you and Lance before that it would be great would be having like a Netflix series or an Amazon series based on it. That would be keep you guys
really
working for a little while.
Yeah.
And
that would be nice. That would be nice. They better hurry up though, because we're getting old.
I'm just saying, it would keep you guys working for a while. It'd be a great story.
Right.
I think even the people today who are the younger people who might not have watched it when it came out would see a series like that and see like a sci-fi type series and take to it and like it. You can make a very good story out of it.
And now these messages.
What's up, dudes? I'm Jerry D of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, books, fashion, and fads.
If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, he's got it covered. Wait, is there a lot of things to talk about for the 80s and Christmas?
Well, you got the movie giants like Christmas Vacation, Scrooged, and A Christmas Story. There are TV specials like Muppet Family Christmas, Claymation Christmas Celebration, and a Garfield Christmas special.
Plus classics shown every year.
You also jam out to Last Christmas, Do They Know It's Christmas, and Christmas in Hollis. But most of all, it was a time for the most bodacious, best-selling Christmas toys ever, like He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers,
and Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yes, them too. We cover them all, plus much more, including standard segments like Hap Happiest Memory, Gag Me with the Spoon, The Other Half of the Battle,
and Chant with the Littles.
So tune in to Totally Rad Christmas everywhere you get your podcasts. Turn the clock back and dive into those warm and fuzzy memories.
Later, dudes.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want your connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
Listen in. Starbucks. It's a great day for coffee.
What seems to be the problem, pal?
There's just so much pain in the world, so many issues. I don't think I can bear it.
Hell, friendo, it sounds like you could use a dose of pop culture roulette.
Pop culture roulette? What's that? Some sort of pop culture themed podcast or something?
That's right, sonny boy. When hope seems far, dive into some PCR.
But I already get my entertainment news from Variety.
Huh, that's pretty good. If you're a chucklehead, PCR gives you news you need, condensed, unfiltered, and raw, from 3 nerds who know a little something about something.
Wow, okay, sign me up.
That's the spirit. Pop Culture Roulette. New episodes every Monday, available on all major podcast directories.
You're pushing the button for the crosswalk and you're waiting for the light. And Samantha's like, "What are you doing?" You're like, "We don't cross against the light.
Against the light.
You know, we're remaking the world or something." And
that's right. The entire civilization depends on us, or whatever I say.
Right. Yeah. So you couldn't cross against the light, but it was okay to play football in the middle of the highway.
In the middle of the street, right? Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. That was fun.
So I mean, I don't remember if it ever said in the movie or not. Did they ever make mention of survivors in other cities?
Not specifically. I think at one point they thought there was somebody else, but maybe it was the scientists that were buried underground or whatever, or was it the scientists who heard the girls? I think that was it. But they didn't get into like the rest of the country or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
From what I remember.
I think if you were going to do like a sequel or something, it would be basically exploring who all survived across the country and bringing the people together somehow. Kind of like what The Stand did in the book The Stand or TV movie. How from all across the country they're drawn together somehow to one central location.
Somehow, and all these different characters. You could do a lot with that.
Right.
That's kind of The Walking Dead too, right? Because they're always traveling from one city to the other trying to find.
Right, but nothing was drawing them in, though. I mean, it's not like something was drawing. They were just trying to find some place safe to be. And in The Stand, something was drawing them in their dreams. Like Mother Abigail, I think her name was, drawing them in their dreams to a certain location, and they just knew to go there or something. But maybe nothing that extreme, but something just they feel like they got to go to this one place, and everybody's being drawn together locally. And now you're rebuilding or something. You know, this is
right.
Of course. But I'm sure that'd be a lot more deeper than that. It'd have to be. It's just
Well,
an
I mean,
idea.
I think that's a great idea. You know, I mean, it's there's so many things you could do with it.
We could call it Teenage Mutant Comet Zombies 2.
Yeah, that's right. That was the original title. Is the Comet Zombies, right? Teenage Comet Zombies. Was the
Teenage Comet Zombies, which I think was mentioned in the movie at one point. I think Kelly's character she says it at one point in the movie on the radio station.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
She got all the good lines, right? She got the iconic lines. Although I did like, "We do not cross against the light."
Do you have a favorite part of this movie that you remember that was your your favorite thing to film in it, or is it? I have a feeling it's probably the zombie, but
well, yeah, I mean that was really fun. It was just super fun to do that whole sequence. So many things. The whole scene with Michael Bowen, you know, in the film booth. I even like, you know, people say at the end of the movie when I'm wearing that really yucky dress.
Very 80s dress, yeah.
It was very 80s and very, I mean, I chose that because I wanted to be, I am now, like Kelly's wearing, a bathing suit and she's got the little Hawaiian thing on and the sunglasses. And my character is completely the opposite because I'm taking this, we're the last people on earth thing very seriously. And I am going to be the button up matriarch kind of thing. And some people say, why would you wear such an ugly dress? I'm like, well, because that is Reggie, trying to be this completely the opposite of what she was before. Oh, my responsibility now is to blah, blah. She was like I don't know, an old English matriarch or something. That was also really super fun to shoot because it was kind of a departure from how the character had been throughout the movie. There's so many, I said, the scene, talking to the guy about, oh, you have whatever disease it was, all that stuff down in the underground, and pulling tags off my newly bought clothes, or not bought, my newly acquired clothes that was super fun. I mean, the mall thing was fun. The drag about a lot of the scenes where they were shot at night, and night shooting is, for me, just a nightmare, so to speak. Because it just throws your body off so bad. But we shot all that stuff, the whole mall sequence, we shot in one night. So that was kind of challenging. But we had a lot of fun doing it, We weren't even sure what the music was going to be at that point. So, and then, Kelly and I were sort of ad-libbing a bunch of stuff and running up and down the stairs. And it was fun. It was just kind of a fun thing to shoot. It was a lot of work and a lot of weird hours, but we were kind of all in it together. And, it's such a goofy concept that you just got to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, so that was one of my questions, was like, how was this one different than the other movies you filmed around the same time? I know, I guess they were all very different. I mean, from Last Starfighter to Mischief, Weekend at Bernie's, Night of the Comet, I know they were all different, but what do you, I want to ask you, which one did you like better? Because I'm sure they all had pros and cons, but what really set this one apart from the others that makes it stand out? Whether you're more close-knit, just the night shoots, or what stands out?
Yeah. Well, I think that it was, like I said, sort of we were all in it together. It was sort of a smaller group of people just kind of doing what we had to do. Nobody was put on a pedestal. We were just sort of having fun. And Tom Everhart was great. It was interesting because I think there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that I wasn't aware of. In terms of the producers wanted to make a horror movie, and Tom was like, yeah, it's not really a traditional horror movie. It's there's some scary bits in it, but he really wanted to have that kind of comical element in there. I mean, he did his research for this was he talked to these teenage girls about what they would do if it was the end of the world,
Mm-hmm.
And in traditional apocalyptic movies, everybody's freaking out and they're
right,
crying or drinking or taking drugs or something to numb or just so scared. And the girls, he was, I think, surprised by their reaction, which was, what, no parents? Excellent. And I think that's where he got the idea, well, we would hit the malls. We would just, put on whatever we wanted to put on. There was not this whole kind of classical story of, oh, we're helpless and we wouldn't know what to do. It was like, this is fantastic, So that, yeah, you can make it super scary and everything. And we did shoot some scenes where we responded to certain scenes like hysterical, and then in other ways we would do more sort of tongue in cheek and more the way that Tom envisioned it to be. So it was like I said, it was small. It was a small group of people. It was sort of more guerrilla filmmaking. We all knew that there was no money and we were just but there was some very, very talented people involved with it. So I think that made a huge difference.
Yeah, sometimes you have more fun when there's limitations because you have to be more creative. And like I read about the scene with like Sam, there's a scene of her going to the elevator that really wasn't her. It was like a costume designer that wore her tennis shoes. And like he got praised for like what a great shot to not show her full body with just her feet. And it's like, well, that's just because we ran out of money. We had to go back and do a reshoot. She wasn't available, so we made this happen. And it's like that's the beauty of that kind of filmmaking when it's small, where it's like you got to make it happen. You come up with a creative way to tell the story that goes outside of the parameters what somebody else would have done if they had full budget to do it. So very cool.
Yeah. I mean, a lot, we were talking about budgets earlier, and there's just so insane, $200 million.
Yeah.
A lot of that it goes to the actors, because if you look at these movies and who the lead, Tom Cruise is a classic example, but most of the budget is going to this guy, which is sort of sad, I feel like, because well, he needs another $100 million, of course.
Who can't use an extra $100 million laying around?
I know.
Yeah.
But so it's these movies with these big actors. Such a huge chunk of the budget goes to them, which is also the drag for somebody like me. Is that the lesser characters, when I work, and I'm still working, I get paid less than I was paid back in the 80s. You get the minimum wage that there are union allows, and then sometimes they'll add on 10% for you to give to your agent. And that happens in these giant movies too. Scale plus 10. I mean, I can't guarantee it because I haven't been in one of these movies, but the budget goes to the actors, and then everybody else gets scale plus 10. And I think it's criminal.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, do you have anything else that you want to ask?
No, it was a pleasure to meet you and to get to have this conversation. Just thank you. It was a great movie. It was good to see. I was going to make a mention about this being, I guess, after Terminator, with like Linda Hamilton being like the aliens, Sigourney Weaver. You got Linda Hamilton, and you've got Catherine Mary Stewart as the heroine.
The Belmont sisters.
Exactly. There you go. So
girl power.
Yeah, exactly. So it was. I mean, like I said, because I didn't see it at the time, but going back and watching it now, like how one of the groundbreaking movies of the 80s to put the women in the forefront as being the heroes. Hector's great, but he's not. He doesn't come to save you guys. I mean, you all kind of work together as a team, and you kind of save him in certain aspects. So just, a great movie. I wish more people knew about it and were watching it. So hopefully this gives more exposure to that, but just, it was wonderful talking to you. Thanks for letting me be a part.
Tim. That means a lot. Thank you very much. At conventions, a lot of women come up and say, it was empowering seeing two women being able to actually take care of themselves. What? And And guys like it too. I always feel like I'm talking to, what's that cereal? And I, no. What is it? Oh, and it doesn't matter. It was, but guys like it too is the point, is that there's this sort of, I feel like this kind of general mentality about how, you can't make women strong because it intimidates guys or something like that. But no, it makes me crazy, that sort of thing.
What an awesome time we had with Catherine Mary Stewart. Such a delight to have her on the show. And if you love this episode, I have some awesome news to share with you. Catherine has actually agreed to come on our show and discuss another one of her often forgotten 80s flicks, Mischief. So be on the lookout for that episode early next month. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap on this episode of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. If you enjoyed listening to us, we greatly appreciate if you take a moment and share your feedback and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button and help us spread the word to all your fellow 80s flick enthusiasts. If you have any questions or want to chat about your favorite scenes, you can reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. You can also show your love and support for the show at buymeacoffee.com. Every little bit helps and makes a big difference. Be sure to visit our online store at 80sflickflashback.com and tpublic.com for some awesome 80s flick flashback gear and original 80s inspired designs. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Thank you so much, Retro Life for You and Chris Adams, for allowing me to rebroadcast part of his episode. Definitely go check out his show as well. I'm Tim Williams for the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. Jeez, there goes the neighborhood.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.